Welcome to the 80th episode of Martin's Man Cave here on podcast.ph. Our guest is retired Brigadier General Victor Corpuz. He was born on October 4, 1944 in San Pablo, Laguna, and he currently lives here in Manila. He finished his elementary and secondary education at the De La Salle University and took up his master's degree in public administration at Harvard University in 1990. He also graduated at the Philippine Military Academy in 1967. He gained prominence in 1970 when, as an instructor at the academy, he joined the New People's Army. But he became disillusioned with the Communist Party of the Philippines leadership and surrendered to his mista in 1976. He was tried by the Military Tribunal Number 1 and sentenced to death by musketry with Ninoy Aquino and Bernabe Buscaino in 1977. After spending years in the military prison, approximately 10 years, he was released and reinstated in the Armed Forces of the Philippines in 1987 by the President Corazon Aquino. He held various posts in the Armed Forces of the Philippines during the 1990s and was eventually appointed Chief of Military Intelligence, or ISAF, by the former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. After retiring from the military, he was appointed as head of the Veterans Affairs Office in Washington, D.C. in August of 2009. His colorful life was made or produced into film in 1987, which starred the late Rudy Fernandez. He also wrote 2 books, The Silent War and U.S. Dim Mac Points, Unrestricted Warfare in the 21st Century. He received numerous awards such as the Distinguished Service Star, Gawad sa Kaunlaran, Military Civic Action Medal, Dean of Academics Awards, Aurora Aragon Quezon Peace Awards, and Certificate of Academic Excellence, and much more. Without further ado, General Victor Corpuz. Thank you so much for accepting our invite to be interviewed and documented here inside Martin's Man Cave on podcast.ph, the Lifecast. Welcome, sir.
You're welcome, Martin.
Before we talk about your adventures in life, can you please tell us something about your parents?
Well, my father was an army doctor. He graduated at Ateneo and then took up medicine in UST. Eventually became the Army Surgeon General before his retirement. And my mother is a simple housewife. She took care of the family.
Do you have siblings?
Yes, I have one brother, Celestino, and 2 sisters, Catalina and Mary.
Mm-hmm. And they're here in Manila too?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
all of them.
All of them. Tell us about your elementary and high school days in La Salle.
Well, those are one of my happiest days in my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Kasi carefree
Mm-hmm.
and parang walang problema ang mundo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The situation is very ideal.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought then that society is like that in microcosm.
Mm-hmm.
But I was shocked when I saw the real world outside.
Mm-hmm. And you saw the real world after the Philippine Military Academy or just before that?
When I went to the Philippine Military Academy, that started my reawakening.
Mm-hmm.
Because before I graduated from high school, I asked my parents permission to join the seminary. I wanted to join the Jesuit order after reading that about the life of Saint or Father Damien of Mulukai. But my mother advised me because his grandfather was a PMA graduate, his brother was a PMA graduate, and two of her brothers also joined the military, one in the Philippine Constabulary and the other died during the war. And my father is also in the military, so my parents advised me to, why not take the PMA entrance exam?
Let's continue the legacy.
If you fail, then you do what you want. So you can become a priest if you want. So, fortunately or unfortunately, I passed the exam in PMA when even before I graduated from high school. So I entered the PMA as a high school graduate. Immediately after graduation from high school, maybe 1 week after, I already entered the PMA as a plebe.
And you are the only one in the family who joined the military.
Yes. Yeah.
What did your sisters end up doing?
My sister got married to a PMA graduate also.
Oh, okay.
And my other sister married a Chinese.
So it really runs in the family, this military tradition.
Yeah.
Do you have any children who joined the military?
Well, two of my sons passed the entrance exam for PMA. But my eldest, Jack, only took the exam to find out if he can pass it. When he passed it, he said that he's not really interested in joining the military. So I did not force him. My second son, Kaloy, passed the entrance exam, but he failed in the physical because he had asthma at that time. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise because if they had entered and my name was very notorious at that time, they would have they would have suffered a lot.
I could just imagine the young Victor Corpuz.
But my youngest son was really very interested. Even before he took the entrance exam, he already underwent airborne training with the Marines. And he has already memorized all the nomenclatures of all the fighter planes of Russia, US, China, and he had read all my books on strategy because when I had a chance to go to the United States, all my allowances I spent on military books. So all my collection, it is my son that is reading it because I did not have time to read all of them. So he was really very prepared and very enthusiastic. But his health, actually, he was an athlete in LaSalle. He was a member of the track and field team there, speed runner. And a marathoner, but unfortunately, he was suffering from asthma, and if you join the PMA with asthma, you might die.
Yeah, because of the
strenuous, very strenuous physical requirements.
You have 3 kids, 3 children. One is Cynthia. Tell us more about Cynthia.
Yeah, Cynthia is my youngest among the 3. She finished information technology and then accounting. And right now, she's full-time helping me, and she is my co-inventor in a patent that we applied for regarding an alternative form of energy.
And we will talk about that alternative form of energy later on.
Yeah.
If I don't mention your wife, Melly, she might get mad at you when you
Yeah.
when you get home.
This is the most important.
The most important is the wife. So ano yung naging role ni Melly nung kayo ay...
I met Melly when I was engaged in anti-demonstration at the time. I was with the special forces of the Philippine Constabulary. And sometimes we get deployed as anti-riot squads. At that time, I was already aware of what's happening in our society because of my education in Philippine Military Academy. She was a member of the Kabataan Makabayan at that time. But there was a split, and they formed the breakaway faction of Kabataan Makabayan, the Samahang Demokratikong Kabataan, or SDK. At the time led by Sixto Carlos. They demonstrate against American imperialism, feudalism, and bureaucrat capitalism. Those were the issues at that time. We were the ones assigned as anti-riot squads. So kami yung
Tagapalo.
tigapalo ng mga ulo nila pagka naging unruly yung demonstration.
Oo.
There was one time when
Parang pelikula lang,
the demonstrations became so violent that 4 of their comrades were killed nung yung first quarter storm na tinatawag. So after the demonstration, mag-off duty na ako. Sila naman magmi-meet kami, tapos kasama ko siyang nagbibisita doon sa mga namatay na mga kasama nila. So that's how
you met her during the demonstration. When was this? 1960?
This was 1969.
69. So talagang by chance that you just saw her and you said, oops, I don't know.
I was invited by Crispin Tagamulila to attend yung kanilang mga discussion groups at that time. So doon na nag-develop yung aming relationship. We decided to get married after a few days courtship, yung underground marriage. Ang nag-officiate ng aming kasal, yung dati kong professor sa PMA, si Dante Simbulan, Dr. Dante Simbulan.
So from LaSalle, you joined the Philippine Military Academy. Medyo nasa gobyerno ka nun. And then in 1969, there was the demonstrations happened. You met your wife.
Yeah, this is how I changed ideology, no?
Before you talk about that, let's take a short break.
Okay.
Let's just bitinin natin ng konti ang ating mga viewers.
Okay.
You're watching Martin's Man Cave here on podcast.ph. Again, you can listen to us through iTunes. You can download us for free. You can also go to Podomatic or Spreaker. Just type podcast.ph programs. Go straight to our YouTube account, podcast.ph, if you want to watch this episode. Or the best way, or the easiest way, probably just go to our website, which is www.podcast.ph, or our Facebook account, podcast.ph, and you can watch the episode with General Victor Corpuz. Don't go away, we'll be right back.
This economic elite control the instrumentalities of government and use it to preserve and protect their narrow vested interests. One of the instrumentalities of government is the armed forces. What kind of orders missions do we get? Patayin mo si ganito, patayin mo si ganyan. give you one example.
The former AFP General Victor Corpuz, earlier on, before we took a break, we were about to discuss his ideologies, how he turned from a devout Catholic student, and how he moved to the Philippine Military Academy, and from the PMA, how he was able to imbibe that ideology and culture of the people back then who struggled against the government. Sir, tell us how it developed.
Okay, I was able to enter LaSalle by accident, literally. Kasi I was enrolled by my parents in the post school in what was then called Fort William McKinley. That became Fort Bonifacio, because my father was a military officer, a military doctor. While playing in the playground, there was that slide that you climb and then slide down. But instead of sliding down, the one following me was maybe in a hurry. He pushed me. And instead of sliding down, I fell to the ground from the top of the slide to the ground and lost consciousness. And I only woke up when I was already in the hospital. And because of that incident, my mother pulled me out of the school. They decided to enroll me in LaSalle. But they had to sacrifice a lot to be able to send me there. So I really thank my parents for that, because I learned a lot from LaSalle. Yung moral upbringing, my moral upbringing was all because of my education in LaSalle. When I was already leaving for the PMA at that time, one of my teachers then, Brother Bonaventure Richard, he wished me luck, but he said that the Philippine Military Academy can either make you a man or destroy you. On my fourth year, I really exerted all effort to study, and I was able to catch up and eventually graduated number 3 in the whole class. I was given the bronze medal for general excellence. Hindi lang binigay sa akin yung valedictorian dahil
Umabol ka na lang.
huli na.
Muli na lahat.
So, after high school, immediately I went to PMA. This was already my third year. Our history teacher was a very nationalistic and very passionate teacher. He had a doctorate in a Canadian university. This teacher was constantly attacking church practices. Yung katulad ng mga mga adventures ni Father Damaso. Padre Damaso. Okay? Yung kay Rizal. And then he was also very anti-American, yung quote and quote. And because of my upbringing na mga American teachers, yung mga American brothers yung nagturo sa amin, and yung religious background nga. Every time this teacher of mine attacks the church or attacks the American, I was one of those who were first to argue with my teacher, to question yung kanyang tinuturo. But every time I try to refute yung kanyang presentations, lagi akong napapahiya sa harap ng klase. Dahil my arguments were all based on emotion eh. Eh siya, historical facts.
Logic.
No? Because I was not aware of that portion of our history. Kasi iba yung turo sa aming, iba yung history ni Saide dun sa history ni Agoncillo eh, di ba? What I did was to back up my arguments. I became a regular visitor sa library. Every free time I run to the library and do research. But the more I read and the more I knew, the more I realized that what my teacher was saying were the truth, historical facts. You cannot argue with historical facts. On my 4th year, there was another doctorate professor, Major Dante Simbulan at that time. You listen to every word that comes out of his mouth. Magaling yung presentation and very calm but very penetrating. Ang thesis niya that Philippine society is like a pyramid. That on top, you have 0.1 of 1% or 100 families controlling practically the entire wealth of the country. Controlling land, most of the land, which is the basic means of production. This elite few not only controls economic power, but they also control political power. Because economic power begets political power. And they use this political power that they monopolize to protect and preserve their narrow class interest. This economic elite control the instrumentalities of government. One of the instrumentalities of government is the armed forces, the police, the courts. So, ang lumalabas dyan, the elite are just using us not really in the service of the people, but in the service of this elite few. Ganun magiging feeling mo. Based on that theory. Doon nag-umpisa yung aking kamulatan. We are not really serving the interest of our people, but we are serving the interest of a chosen few in our society, or the vested interest of a narrow class. I'll give you some examples that convince me that we are just a tool of the elite. When I was assigned in the Special Forces, Philippine Constabulary, I came from the Army. After our Special Forces training and airborne training, I suddenly received an order saying that I'm being transferred to the PC. I didn't want to enter the Philippine Constabulary. Why are you ordering me to go there against my will? So I requested General Headquarters to transfer me to the Philippine Navy instead if they want to transfer me. But my request was denied. So I was assigned to the Special Forces of the Philippine Constabulary. At that time, the head was Orlando Dulay. I later found out that the people that we are going to train are people from the private army of doon na reinforce yung perception ko na ginagamit lang kami ng mga naghaharing uri para for their own selfish interest. Why are they going to use us to train goons? Actually, they were goons, mga private armies. And the funny thing is that their firearms are more modern than the firearms in the armed forces.
More sophisticated, huh?
We were only using Garand at that time, carbine and Garand. They were already using M14 and M16 and M79. Then, what kind of missions do we get? Patayin mo si ganito, patayin mo si ganyan.
Ganon, ah.
Isang mission na binigay sa amin, kasi isang piyesta sa Pamplona, Cagayan, yung mayor doon, nagpapaputok ng baril. Yung sa ere.
Indiscriminate firing.
Indiscriminate firing. Sinitas yan ng 2 tao namin. Yung bodyguard niya, pinaligiran yung tao namin. And then, nawala na lang yung tao namin. Yung pala, linibing na nila.
Diyos ko po.
Okay. So, itong CEO namin, nung nalaman yung ganon, they sent mga special forces teams to hunt down the mayor.
Oh.
And then, isa ako doon sa pinadala na patayin yung mayor.
Oh.
But alam ko naman yung illegal order sa siyempre, I did not participate. Instead, ang natagpuan ko doon yung unang naging girlfriend ko. Isang doktora sa Pamplona, Cagayan. Si Wilhelmina or Wilma Aquino.
Ibang putukan yun.
We were already engaged to get married. Sabi niya, 2 taon lang, I will specialize on yung kanyang sa medicine. And then come back after 2 years. At that time, meron ng first quarter storm. Nabaling naman yung attention ko kay Meli dun sa yung mga aktivista. So, iniisip ko kung since I was already decided on what to do. Kasi sabi ko, I will devote my life to the effort in changing our status quo.
The struggle.
Or changing our what I see as a rotten system. Doon nga sa unit namin nag-umpisa yung mga salvaging.
Oh. Doon na uso.
Special forces, yeah.
Doon na uso.
Yeah.
And that was 1968?
69.
69.
O 68, 69. Ganon, nag-umpisa. Yan, yung Jabida affair. Kasi yung mga members ng Jabida, mga roommates ko, they were inviting me to join the Jabida.
Sila,
Sina, yan?
Yung head doon si Martel. Abadilla.
Sina...
Kabats mo si Abadilla.
2 years ahead sa akin.
Pero roommates mo sa...
Roommates ko sa Special Forces. So, when they come back from their mission, nagkikwentuhan kami. So, alam ko lahat yung nangyayari dun sa kanilang mission.
Corridor.
Pwede bang talakayin dito yan?
Pwede naman.
Ikaw nang bahalang mag-edit, no? Kasi this is history,
Water under the bridge na yun.
And you cannot hide from history. Ang nangyari dyan, gusto nating get back Sabah. Nag-organize itong Jabida na mga Muslims,
Mga tausog.
headed by mga PMA, mostly mga PMA Special Forces, trained.
Mga kasamahan mo.
Yeah. Kasama ko doon sa Special Forces. Buti na lang hindi ako napasama.
Iba yung nautos.
Ang plano nila is to infiltrate Sabah. They commit atrocities in Sabah. The Muslim participants were revolted with what they were doing to their fellow Muslims. Some of them wanted out. isang classmate ni Abdillah, kinampihan yung mga Muslim. So, pati siya, pinatay.
They were training
Diyan sa Juan,
during that time
sa Corregidor.
Corregidor. So the Operation Merdeka did not push through.
Naka-infiltrate na sila.
Naka-infiltrate na.
Oh, bumabalik dun kasi nandoon yung kampo nila sa Corregidor.
So that's the part of history that was not mentioned.
No.
That's the missing part of history.
Yes.
I produced a story with TV5 about the Operation Merdeka. And according to the historians, they were training at Corregidor, and before they even launched the operation, nag-revolt. So meaning hindi natuloy yung
Natuloy sila dahil kausap ko yung mga kausap ko yung mga taong involved eh. Kainuman ko, kabarkada ko. And they were trying to convince me to join. Gusto kong ipakita sa iyo yung perception ko na ginagamit lang kami bilang kasangkapan ng a narrow vested interest in our society. Yung sinunog yung dalawang barangay sa Bantay, Ilocos Sur ng mga grupo ni Crisologo. Yung company ko yung kumuha doon sa mga victims, dinala namin dito sa Ateneo, UP. Yung to protect them. Doon kami nagkakilala ni Edgar Hobson. So after that incident, I requested na magturo na lang ako sa PMA dahil yun nga na-involve ako dun sa ng Ilocos. Kasi si Crisologo, Congressman Crisologo ang nag-recommend sa akin na nag-sponsor sa akin sa PMA. When I was teaching in the PMA, itong ang klase nila Onasan, class 71, I was very vocal in denouncing yung na-experience ko doon. Umabot sa kaalaman ni Congressman Crisologo na nadagdagan na that I wanted to kill him. I received a notice to report to the office of the Congressman Crisologo at that time, together with my father, who was the Army Surgeon General at that time. When we entered the office, lahat ng bodyguard ni Congressman nasa likod niya. Congressman Crisologo started raising his voice, saying, in Ilocano, no? Ano itong, what is this? I heard that you wanted me assassinated. Pinsan ko pa naman itong tatay mo. Sabi niya, why are you allowing your son to do this to me? Directed to my father. And you, sabi kay General Ugalde, yung superintendent namin sa PMA, if not for me, you wouldn't have gotten your star. Why are you allowing your officers to plan my assassination? I denied because there was no truth to that accusation. I was denouncing what they did, but not planning to assassinate him. 1 week after, he was shot inside the church in Vigan, Ilocos Sur. Congressman Floro Crisologo. Hindi ako ngayon yung suspect. I was thinking that General Ugalde, because he was there when Floro Crisologo was accusing me of planning to assassinate him, and then 1 week after he was shot in the church. I was waiting to be arrested. At that time, we have already finished planning the PMA raid, yung armory raid. Ang speculation ko, General Ugalde maybe thought that I really did it. So, natakot siyang sabihin na, kagagawa niya bigyan, baka mamaya siya naman ang isunod. So, he kept quiet. And so, the PMA raid in the armory, December 29, 1970, pushed through. Kung inaresto ako at that time, that was mga November when he was killed, hindi sana natuloy yung PMA raid. Sinasabi ko nga na yung paggamit ng economic and political elite natin sa mga instrumentalities of government, and one of them is the armed forces and the police. Ginagamit kami sa anti-strike. Pag mag-strike yung mga manggagawa, tatawagin kami nung owner ng tulungin naman nila kami. So sino kakampihan namin? Yung owner ng pagawaan laban do sa mga manggagawa. Pag nag-alsa yung mga magsasaka sa Central Luzon, sinong tatawagin? Tatawagin ng armed forces. Pero because of the exploitation of the landowners against the one, kaya nagre-rebelde yung mga farmers.
When we come back, let's talk about the new chapter inside the Communist Party of the Philippines after that raid. You're still inside Martin's Man Cave here on podcast.ph. This is the 80th and the most exciting episode for this year, 2016. Kasama pa rin po natin si former AFP General Victor Corpuz. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Let's go back to the NPA days.
Yun, mahalaga.
Lima, makikikain kami sa bahay ng isang civilian. Tawag namin doon, masa. Kasi yung ating sistema, sasabihin namin, parang ganito. Ganyan ang sistema natin ngayon. Maraming mga incidents yung nangyari that led to the eventual leaving of the movement. Ang unahing dahilan ay yung
Welcome back to the 80th episode of Martin's Man Cave here on podcast.ph. We are with the former AFP General Victor Corpuz, the former chief of the ISAF. Earlier on, before we took a break, we were talking about the different ideologies that he imbibed as he was growing up and how he left the Philippine Military Academy or the service to join his future comrades back then inside the Communist Party of the Philippines. Sir, so paano nangyari yun? Ni-raid nyo yung armory ng PMA noong December of 1970 and the rest is history.
Yeah. That was December 29, 1970. What happened was that Joma called me to Isabela and asked whether I wanted to join the movement. At that time, I was already a member of the Kabataang Makabayan because when Joma was invited to speak before the cadets way back in 1966, many of the cadets were impressed, and some of us volunteered to join the Kabataang Makabayan. And after graduation, I continued visiting Joma to be updated with what is happening in the movement. I was already AWOL at the time. Before Christmas. Kasi nag-Christmas muna ako sa bahay eh. Hindi ako nag-report for duty. Kasi alam kong last ko na yung I'll be getting out already. I wanted to spend Christmas with my family. So hindi ako nag-report for duty sa PMA. And as punishment, pag-report ko, sabi, okay, you serve as officer of the day on this date as your punishment. So, doon namin isinagawa yung raid sa Philippine Military Academy Armory. So, I was the officer of the day at the time. So, masaludo sa akin lahat. So, it made our job bloodless and easy.
Anong rango mo nun, sir, nung panahon na yun?
I was then a first lieutenant already. From second lieutenant, I was promoted. I was just promoted to first lieutenant. At that time, I was teaching political science in sa mga first class cadets o yung graduating students. Yung sa class nila Honasan at nila Ping Lacson.
Sino mas magaling? Si Ping o si Greg?
Pareho.
Okay, for the record, ilan yung nakuha mong baril? O nakuha niyong baril?
Mga 43 firearms yun.
43. Ilan yung nireport?
Ganon din.
Ganon din.
43.
So, hindi finabricate yung report na yan?
Hindi.
Sino yung
Saka
mga
yung
kasama
mga
mo?
bala.
Sino yung mga kasama nyo?
Ang kasama ko nun, puro mga alias sina Kamar Singh, Kanik, Commander Pusa. Si Commander Pusa, siya yung nakakaalam ng Plaza Miranda bombing.
So, puro ito rebelde o meron ding mga PMAer?
Puro mga rebelde to.
Yung
Puro mga squad leaders sa puro select mga squad leaders.
and you guided them
Yeah.
inside the campus.
Yeah. They stayed in my quarters. Tapos yun.
And that was the biggest story of the day.
Yeah.
For weeks
It became the story of
of the year. When you look back, I mean, you're laughing and you're just smiling. It seems like it brings back a lot of good memories.
yeah. If I were to live life over again, based on the circumstances at that time, I will surely do it again.
Pero anong pagbabago?
Na-involved din kasi ako dun sa smuggling ng firearms from China na mga M14. Nung na-intercept yung firearms from karagatan, yung galing sa China, yun ang binigay sa PMA to be used by the cadets. So lahat ng gamit ngayon ng kadete, yung mga
Mas bago.
mga bagong firearm galing sa China.
So dapat yun ang mga baril nyo sa Communist Party.
Yeah.
Sa inyo dapat yun, na-intercept lang.
Yeah.
Bring us back to that experience. How was it? Yung experience, by the second, by the minute, by the hour, what was going on inside you?
At that time, I was imparting what I feel and what I think to the cadets. Kaya medyo naging controversial yung kwan. And yun yung klase nila Unasan na naging rebelde. Sila yung nagrebelde nung yung EDSA 1. No, that was the result. Because I continued imparting to them yung natutunan ko kina Major Pobre at saka kina Major Simbulan. Both doctorate yun. Dr. Pobre and Dr. Simbulan.
And both were PMAers as well.
Yes. Plus 52 both. So, somehow, naging part ako ng radicalization naman ng Class 71 because I handled their class when I taught comparative government, political science.
It's really a cycle, no? It gets passed from one generation to the next. From Major Simbulan, na ipasa sa'yo, na ipasa mo kay Greg Hunasan. Sa Philippine Military Graduate, ikaw yung unang
Yeah.
tumiwalag. Ikaw yung unang nagrebelde. Ikaw yung original. The real McCoy.
After the EDSA revolution yun eh. Di release yung mga political prisoners. We were released.
Bigyan na amnesty si Presidente Aquino.
Yes.
Kasama ka doon.
Kasama ako doon. Tapos nagparty yung RAM sa bahay namin. Andun sina General Ramos, sina Hunasan. So, ang usap-usapan doon sa party, si Vic naman nangunad doon sa pagre-rebelde sa sa sistema eh. Bakit hindi natin siya ibalik? So, nagpetition yung class namin na ibalik ako sa Kwan. Kasi ang mga heroes at that time were the rebel soldiers. Sabi, ito si Vic naman siya naman ang naunang naging rebel soldier. Bakit hindi natin isama sa ibalik sa armed forces?
You hold that
So,
distinctive title of being the first.
So, nagpetition yung class namin na ibalik ako. Pinalo up ni General Ramos. Inaprubahan ni Cory. So, I was back to the service. Pero, let's go back to the NPA days.
Yun, mahalaga.
Halimbawa, makikikain kami sa bahay ng isang civilian. Tawag namin doon, masa. Kasi yung ating sistema, sasabihin namin, parang ganito. No? Halimbawa, itong pagkain na nasa harap natin, 10 pirasong kamote. Kung may isang kukuha ng plato na yan, at sasabihin, kukuhang 1 piraso, sabihin doon sa siyam, hati-hati kayo dyan, ha? Tapos, isa lang yung kakain ng siyam, yung isa, paghahatian naman ng siyam. Sabi na, ganyan ang sistema natin ngayon.
Kamote yung metaphor nyo.
Oo. Yung isang, yung isa, paghahatian ng karamihan, samantalang yung 90% kakainin ng isang tao. Ganyan yung, basically yung sistema sa Pilipinas. Ilan ang nagmamayari ng malalaking lupain? Ilan lang. Pero samantalang tayo, karamihan sa mga taong bayan, walang pag-aari ng lupa.
From 1970 to 76, kumusta yung buhay bilang isang rebelde?
Well, exciting, mahirap, at matitikman mo lahat ng klaseng pagkain. Ahas, sawa, bayawak, daga, grubs, o yung uod na puti na galing sa ilalim ng lupa, pawikan, musang, mga wild chicken, mga isda. Yung misis ko, nakasama ko dahil sumunod sa akin sa bundok sa countryside.
Sa Sierra Madre to?
We were supported by the party. Yung galing sa partido. Lahat yung kinakain namin galing sa ng partido.
And what were you in charge?
Pero wala kaming sweldo. Hindi kami sinisweldohan.
Libre lang pagkain, kompleto lahat. Walang sweldo.
Walang sweldo.
Hindi naman kayo nagutom.
Matitikman mo yan. Merong mga araw na, halimbawa, 11 days na wala kaming ibang kinain kundi saging. Yung aming bali pinakakanin, yung nilagang hilaw na saging. Yung aming ulam, ginayat na saging at saka puso ng saging. Yung aming dessert, yung pinahinog ng saging. So, minsan, several days, wala kaming pagkain, kundi ganun lang.
Yun ang tunay na...
Kung minsan naman, kamoting kahoy lang. O kung minsan, kamote lang. Meron akong karanasan na for 3 days, hindi kami nakakain dahil naglalakad kami sa bundok. Pagdating namin sa isang barangay, maraming kamote, di nakabili kami ng mga kamote. Sa gutom namin, yung palang kamote, pag nasobrahan ka, parang bato na linagay sa tiyan mo.
Constipation.
Lahat kami tumatakbo sa banyo, kinagabihan.
Hindi pala constipation, talagang LBM.
Merong time naman na nakakain kami ng poison na mushroom. Ganun din, nag-LBM kami lahat doon sa kampo.
Nabanggit nyo kanina na you were, disillusioned by the entire system that you thought was designed to work for the narrow interest of the few rich people who controlled our economy and our government. Kaya kayo lumabas sa serbisyo at umanib kayo sa NPA. Nung nasa loob na kayo within those 6 years, because there was a time that you actually gave up the fight and you surrendered to your mista. What led to that?
Maraming mga incidents yung nangyari that led to the eventual leaving of the movement. Ang unahing dahilan ay yung Plaza Miranda bombing. Nagkakaroon kami ng mga discussion group to discuss yung dialectical materialism, historical materialism. Si Joma yung sa amin, nagle-lecture. Yung ideological basis ng aming pinaglalaban. Teorya ni Joma, we don't have to wait for these revolutionary leaps in the process of historical development. But we can create the situation ourselves. Maliit pa lang yung movement. So, how can we create that parang revolutionary tide? Yung elections. Nationalista versus Liberal Party. This was 1971. Anyway, sabi niya, the Liberal Party and the Nationalista Party are like two sides of the same coin. They are both parties of the elite. They are both parties of the ruling class, our enemy class. So kung pag-awayin natin to, it will benefit the revolution as a whole. Supposing may mangyaring incident sa yung meeting de avance ng isang partido, mag-aaway yung dalawa. So pag nag-aaway yung dalawang naghaharing uri na partido, it will weaken the ruling class as a whole and hasten their downfall. The Liberal Party will accuse the Nationalista. Nationalista Party naman will adopt repressive measures against the Communist Party because tayong ibe-blame niyan. And the greater the repression, the greater will be the resistance. Lalong yun ang magkikreate ng revolutionary leap in the process of historical development. Because the greater the repression by the government, dadami ang rebelde. At that time, kukunti lang kami, mga 9 na squad lang kami. Tapos ito yung parating yung armas. na ilang libo yun. Mahigit 2,000, 2,200.
Ito
Okay?
yung mga smuggled na armas na...
Yung sa galing sa China. Okay? Kasi naplano na rin yung pagdating ng armas eh. Pero ang problema, walang hahawak ng armas.
Walang sundalo.
At yun nga ang nangyari. After the Plaza Miranda bombing, anong nangyari? Marcos declared the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus. Ang daming mga pinaguhuli. Ang daming nagtakbuhan underground. Even Edgar Hobson, na moderate, sumama sa Communist Party. Sumama sa movement. Sumama sa armed struggle.
What was your role inside?
Ako yung sasalubong ng mga armas.
Ikaw rin ang gumawa ng
Yung karagatan.
military training. Ng mga, Ikaw rin ang gumawa
Yes.
ng NPA. Ng mga
Yung military training ng NPA kami.
So,
Ako.
ikaw yung
Nagplano. Yeah.
So therefore, yung training nila ay galing sa knowledge mo.
Yeah.
That was your role.
Yes.
Hindi ka sang-ayon
So,
dun sa Plaza Miranda bombing. Ano
So,
pa?
nangyari. Nangyari yung Plaza Miranda bombing. Nangyari yung teorya ni Joma. That is the brilliance of Joma.
Yung revolutionary leap na sinasabi.
Na predict niya yung mga mangyayari. Kaya lang, it's a different kind of brilliance. May pagkakuan dahil ginamitan ng act of terror. Like the bombing of the Liberal Party meeting the Avance in August 21, 1971.
So tama si Marcos, kayo nga.
Yeah.
Mali yung Liberal Party
Yes.
na si Marcos.
Yes. I was then newly elected or appointed as a member of the Central Committee ng Communist Party of the Philippines. So, nagkaroon kami ng plenum sa Zambales, December 1975. Gusto kong ilabas yung mga criticism ko at that time. And one of them is the Plaza Miranda bombing. Yung isang immediate kung bakit ako umalis sa movement. I was leading a group of armed men to open up a new base area in the boundary of Aurora, Quirino, and Nueva Vizcaya. O Nueva Ecija. Yung sa boundary na yun. Yung tri-boundary o quadruple boundary. Imagine, 40 people, papakainin mo. Kung organisado yung lugar, madaling maki-distribute mo lang yung mga tao mo, tatanggapin ng mga bahay-bahay, dala-dalawa, papakainin, hindi mabigat sa masa. Ginugutom na kami. Yung 11 days na kaming walang kinain kundi saging. Nyug. Pati kumisan, pinuputol na namin yung mga murang nyug para kunin yung ubod. So, I wrote a letter to Joma asking for assistance. Sabi ko, meron kaming 40 katao dito. Nagbubukas pa lang kami. Mahirap namang makikain ka sa masa. Pag nabigatan yung masa, ituturo ka. Di ba? So, pinadala ni Joma si Dante, Commander Dante, si Bernabe Buscaino. May dalang, yung assistant ni Dante, may dalang isang kalderong kanin at saka isang kalderong ulam. Di picnic kami. Tapos inabutan ako ng 2,000 pesos. Sabi ko, uy, kasama, sabi ko, 40 kami. Ito lang bang binigay ng partido for our monthly allowance. Kung 40 kami, tig 50 pesos lang bawat isa. Baka kulang pa sa toiletries. Paano yung pagkain namin? Bakit? Naghihirap ba yung partido? Tanong ko kay Commander Dante. Sabi ni Dante sa akin, hindi naman. Sa katunayan nga, nagsibili sila ng tigis ng kotse yung sa executive committee. doon sa Politburo, yung sama-samang Execom. Ako nga, binigyan ako ng motor, sabi niya, pero nakonsensya ako, binalik ko. Sabi ko, ikaw ang commander-in-chief ng NPA. Anong ginagawa mo doon sa siyudad? Pamotor-motor kayo doon. Oo nga, sabi niya, pero wala akong magagawa. So, dapat ako sumunod doon sa ng Execom. Nung pag-alis nila, yun nga, sabi ko, halos mamatay ka na kami sa gutom. Nagsibili sila ng tigitig isang kotse, 70,000 yata yung nabanggit niya na presyo ng isang sasakyan. Nagtigitig isa. Linalabanan natin yung pagsasamantala dito rin pala sa mas matindi pa yung pagsasamantala na mararanasan natin. So, I had those criticism. Tapos yung nangyari sa karagatan, inassign sa amin na puntahan na pagsasalubungan ng armas, daungan ng mga magsasaka, ng mga mangingisda. Di, malalaman ng buong bansa na may gagawin kami doon. Kaya nabulgar yung yung karagatan. Kasi, it was their duty to make prior reconnaissance bago kami inassign na pumunta ron. And then yung pag-execute kay Danny Cordero, yung na-involve sa Plaza Miranda, we were establishing mga food caches along the parang Ho Chi Minh Trail na going to the Pacific Ocean, crossing the Sierra Madre Mountains. So, naglalagay kami ng food cache para pagdating ng armas, i-relay nilang na papuntang Isabela yung mga 2,200 firearms. And after that, meron pang dadating, sana. Itong mga nasa Kapatagan, sina Danny Cordero, they thought na bakit yung supply, lahat pupunta dun sa bundok, sa gubat. Walang naiiwan sa atin. Yung naiiwan sa atin, yung mga low class na sigarilyo, lahat ng mga Marlboro pupunta dun sa papasok sa lahat. No? Lahat yung mga dilatang masasarap papunta dun sa Hindi nila alam na nagkakasya. Hindi naman pwede sabihin sa kanila, may dadating na armas at mag-aano tayo dyan. Maglalagay ng mga food cache. Akala nila, nagpapasarap kaming mga nasa gubat. No? So, parang nagkaroon ng rebellion against the leadership. Nag-agitate ngayon to si Danny Cordero. May leadership quality to siyang parang ng leader ng KM sa Caloocan Siya din ang parang pinaka-leader doon sa Plaza Miranda bombing. Nung nagkaroon ng plenum na ganyan, yung isang member ng Central Committee, si Cap Peter, yung si Ruben Guevara, so natunugan niya itong parang pag-aalsa ng mga kadre. I-convert niya ngayon itong plenum, regional plenum, into a military tribunal. And Danny Cordero was tried and he was sentenced to death. Yung si Kabining, si Elizabeth Principe, na nag-o-oppose dun sa death sentence, siya yung inatasan na mag-execute dun kay Danny Cordero. Nung bago siya barilin, sabi ni Danny Cordero, mga kasama, wala talaga akong kasalanan dyan. Sa katunayan, I'm very loyal to the party. And the party entrusted me with a very delicate mission. And what is that? Sabi, tinanong siya nila Ruben. Sabi na, ako ang naatasan na magbomba sa Plaza Miranda. Because of that, lalo siyang ginanon. Pinatay. So, with that at the back of my mind, Nung nagplenum naman kami sa Zambales, gusto kong ilabas yung aking mga puna. Dito yung mga nabanggit ko sa iyo. Yung nabanggit ko na ng una. Una nga itong pag-execute kay Danny Cordero at saka yung kagagawan ng yung role ng partido sa Plaza Miranda bombing. But kung ilalabas ko yun, and other mga puna na marami din, mahaba, ano ba, yung mga indiscriminate killings. Maaring mangyari din yung nangyari sa akin kay Danny Cordero. Kinimkim ko yung aking mga puna. Hindi ko na nailabas. Until at the end of the plenum, I was assigned to Mindanao. Magsasama-sama na kami doon ni Rolly Quintanar. Si Rolly Quintanar ang aking political officer doon sa Karagatan. I decided na dumaan ako sa bahay para makita ko naman yung anak ko. Kasi 5 years na yung anak ko. Napanganak nung December 10, umalis ako December 29 nung 1970. So 19 days pa lang yung anak ko, iniwan ko na sa mga magulang ko. So nakapasok ako na walang nakakaalam sa bahay. Pagpasok ko lang sa bahay, meron akong narinig na yung sumisigaw na bata. Lola, hugas. Sabi. Tinignan ko yung sumisigaw na bata doon sa banyo. Sabi ko, ang laki-laki mo na, hindi ko pa marunong maghugas. Humingin sa akin yung anak ko. Lintik na ito ah. Sabi sa akin, nasyak ako. hindi ako kilala. Lintik na ito ah. So, sabi ng mama ko, yan yung anak mo. Doon ako natauhan. Yun ang last straw. Kinonta ko yung aking
Mista.
Sa PMA. And sabi ko na gusto ko nang bumalik. Ayun, inayos nila hanggang pinagsama kami ng misis ko doon sa kanyang detention center. Detention area. Doon, nagsama na kami.
Nauna
for 10 years. Nauna siya ng 3 taon.
Nauna siya nahuli.
Yeah. Meron akong nakalimutang gusto kong banggitin na istorya. Nung papunta yung grupo namin sa sasalubungin yung mga armas from Jones Isabela to dun sa Pacific coast ng Isabela sa Digoyo. It took us 21 days. Binabagtas namin yung Sierra Madre. At that time, ang aking inassign sa akin na political officer was Rolly Quintanar. Naging head ito ng New People's Army. Siyang pumalit kay Dante. Nung paalis na kami, natinik yung paa nitong si Rolly. Namaga. Hindi niya ngayon maisuot yung boots niya. Sabi ko, kasama, mabuti siguro magpaiwan ka na lang. Dahil namamaga yung paa mo babagtasin natin itong Sierra Madre. Ang tatalim ng mga bato dyan. Kung hindi ka magbuboots, baka hindi mo matiis. Ano mong ginawa niya? Tinapon yung boots. Tayo na. Lakad kami. And natiis yan na 21 days kami naglalakad. Namamaga yung paa niya. And then, ilang beses kami napalaban. Minsan, binobomba kami. I was trying to, siya, Yung iba, hindi na malaman kung anong gagawin. But he was calm enough to calm down yung mga yung mga kasama namin na nagpapanik na nung binobomba na kami. Ganyan. Walang takot yan. So, saludo ako dun sa bravery ni Rolly Quintanar. Patay na yon. Pinatay dito sa Circle, Quezon City Circle, ng mga dating kasama rin. But, to me, he's an extraordinary personality that I hats off ako sa kanya.
You're still watching Martin's Man Cave here on podcast.ph. This is the 80th episode. Our guest is former AFP General Victor Corpuz. He's also a former member of the Politburo Committee of the Communist Party of the Philippines. And he is narrating to us his story, starting from grade school to high school to PMA, and how he joined the struggle to topple the government of the Philippines. Sa pagbabalik natin, another chapter of his life, yung pagbabalik naman niya doon sa kanyang pamilya at yung pag-surrender niya sa gobyerno. Don't go away, we'll be right back.
Address to President Cory to accept me back in the service. Hindi ako sumang-ayon doon sa kanilang planong maglunsad ng coup laban kay Cory. Kung gusto natin ng tunay na pagbabago, pwede natin makamit itong mga necessary reforms sa society.
Victor Corpuz. What happened between 1976 until 1987?
Nag-surrender ako noong 1976. I was detained together with my wife dahil nauna nang nakadetain yung wife ko ng 3 years doon sa Military Security Unit or MSU ng Philippine Army. That's the parang doon detainees like Ninoy Aquino, like Dante Buscaino, like John Masison. So doon ako sinama. Pinagsama kami nung misis ko. We were tried by the Military Tribunal, Military Commission number 1. And was eventually sentenced to death by musketry.
Sino-sino kayo?
Ang kasama kong na-sentenced to death is Ninoy Aquino and Bernabe Buscaino, alias Commander Dante.
Tatlo kayo? Kasama yung asawa nyo?
Hindi.
Tatlo lang
Tatlo
kayo?
lang kami. Nagkasakit si Ninoy, pinagamot sa Amerika. Eh nung gusto na niyang bumalik, sinasabihan siya, wag nang bumalik. Diyan ka na lang. But he was insistent. In my opinion, they do not want him to come back dahil if there will be an election and Ninoy runs, he might win the election and balikan naman sila. Yun ang aking analysis na kaya ayaw nila pabalikin si Ninoy. But when Ninoy insisted on coming back, the Supreme Court at the time, headed by Justice Fernando, affirmed our death sentence. That was 1 week before Ninoy Aquino returned. Siguro to convince him to
Not to return.
or else
He'll be shot.
you will be shot legally. Legal. So, kinabahan ako noon dahil sabi ko, naku, mukhang mukhang they will get rid of Ninoy the legal way. Eh, damay kami doon.
Hindi boss kayo, no?
Di ba? So, doon talaga ako kinabahan dahil mukhang ito yung plano. And palagay ko, kung ganun ang nangyari, hindi nagyari yung EDSA. Dahil may legal basis eh. Although, alam natin na lutong Macau yung trial. But, siguro, may ibang mga nagplano na tinira na lang siya sa tarmac. So, nangyari yung EDSA. Nakalimutan na yung death sentence namin. Dahil patay na si Ninoy. And after the EDSA, pinawalan na kami. Tapos, nag-party yung RAM sa bahay na sabi nila na, si Corpuz naman ang unang rebel soldier. Bakit hindi natin tanggapin uli pabalik sa armed forces? So gumawa ng petition yung mga classmates ko to Cory, addressed to President Cory to accept me back in the service. Tinanggap naman, but after that nagkaroon ng mga series of coup d'etat. Na-involve ako doon dahil inimbita ko doon sa special study group that is headed by Gringo Onasan doon sa SND. Pero hindi ako sumang-ayon doon sa kanilang planong maglunsad ng coup laban kay Cory. Got out of that group, informed Ramos doon at saka si De Villa, na chief of staff, about the plan. We opposed yung God Save the Queen. Napalaban uli ako dun sa grupo ng RAM. Because of that.
So fast forward. You retired as the ISAP chief under President Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo. And looking back to what happened to your life, you opposed the government, you went back to government, and in the process you were given the amnesty by Cory Aquino. You were able to go back to service, and you retired as an AFP Brigadier General.
Brigadier General.
Napakaswerte niyo po dahil at the same time you were able to extensively study abroad. You were able to go to Harvard University and take up your master's in public administration and write your books. Ano po yung mga natutunan nyo during the past decades na masasabi nyo ngayon na sana itong chapter ng buhay na to hindi na nangyari to? Or meron bang chapter sa buhay nyo na kung ulitin lang, hindi nyo gagawin? Yung chapter lang na yun.
Yung overall, no? Yung lesson na natutunan ko sa aking mga experience. Kung gusto natin ng tunay na pagbabago, pwede natin makamit itong mga necessary reforms sa society. Not necessarily using armed struggle. Kasi yung experience ko sa armed struggle, ang daming nagbuwis ng buhay. Ang daming mga kasama na very sincere, very capable. Meron pa dyan mga magna cum laude, mga cum laude sa UP, sa mga matataas na kwan. Pero nasayang yung kanilang kinabukasan, nasayang yung mga buhay. Pero anong nakamit? Wala pa rin pagbabago, wala pa rin pag-unlad yung ating bayan. Ganun pa rin ang social inequality sa ating society. May mga paraan, palagay ko, makamit ang ating ninanasang pagbabago, hindi sa pamamaraan ng paggamit ng dahas. Katulad ng ginagawa namin ngayon sa renewable energy. Pagka naging tagumpay yung aming ginagawa, it will eventually change the face of Philippine society.
That renewable energy that you have, and just to give people a slight hint of what it is, that is one element in our Mother Earth
Yeah.
that we can turn into energy that has not been used yet. So, abangan nila kung ano yun.
Yeah.
Because we will discuss that project in another podcast called Bonfire Discussions. At the same time, busy rin kayo sa inyong sinusulat na military and economic and social theory about the West Philippine Sea, the
Yes.
South China Sea, and why China is doing this.
Yeah.
Can you give our audience just a slight synopsis?
Synopsis? Okay, yung nangyayari sa West Philippine Sea, yung issue na yan, is very critical, very pivotal to the future of this country. Sa ngayon, ang tingin ko, doon sa pag-handle ng mga issues sa West Philippine Sea, ay matinding kakulangan ng mas malayo at mas malawak na pananaw. Kung hindi natin makita yung lahat ng repercussions ng ating ginagawa at na magkamali tayo, mahirap ng mabago ng mga future generations yung magiging destiny ng ating bansa. Dapat mapag-aralan natin yung mga trends sa mundo. Ano ang trend sa Amerika? Ano ang trend sa China? Yung isa pabagsak, yung isa pataas. Baka ang makapitan natin yung pabagsak, lulubog tayo kasama ng pabagsak. Kung mali yung ating choice. At malalaman lang natin yan sa malalimang susuri nung mga kasulukuyang nangyayari sa ating mundo.
This is encapsulated in a journal, in an article, in a white paper that you wrote, the Heartland Theory, and you were able to elaborate the Heartland Theory. Tapos, i-explain din natin yan, pag-uusapan natin yan in another podcast discussion there in Bonfire Discussions. Lastly, sir, yung kamote, ganun pa rin. No? Siyam pa rin ang dun sa hasindero at isang kamote lang para sa uring manggagawa. Yung pinaglaban mo noong 1969 at noong 1970 kayo umanib sa mga komunista. Ngayon, ganun pa rin.
Hindi lang ngayon ganun pa rin, baka lumala pa yung social inequality. Katulad ng nangyari sa Amerika. Yung 1% enjoys everything, yung 99% walang naiwan.
Thank you so much for your time, General Victor Corpuz, and thank you so much for sharing your story, your life story, and Martin's Man Cave, the live cast here on podcast.ph. Sana po ay huwag kayong manawa sa amin, sir. Mabuhay po kayo.
Marami din salamat na naimbitahan ninyo ako dito, Martin. And mabuhay kayo.
And this is the 80th podcast of Martin's Man Cave. Maraming salamat. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you in one of our platforms, either podcast.ph, Spreaker, Stitcher, Podomatic, and you can also download us on iTunes or YouTube or www.podcast.ph. Thank you.
This podcast.ph presentation is supported by Martin Andanar's Homecast Studio and Audio.ph.